Hi, I'm Zach, Neozelandese, and I'm here to talk about Architects of the West Kingdom, tactics and strategies to help you beat your friends. A basic concept in Architects of the West Kingdom is gathering resources. How do we do this? Each turn we get to place one worker, and we can place them in the circles that give us resources. Here in the quarry, I can take one stone. The next turn, I place another worker, and I get 2 stone. And the next turn, 3 stone. Obviously, if I go to another spot, I don't get stone. So what's important to note about this? It's very important to focus your attention on one spot, getting all the stone you need before shifting your attention. There's a few reasons for this. The first reason is that the more guys you get on it, the quicker you're going to get all the resources that you need. The second reason is, which might seem silly, but when you place lots of workers in a spot, you're actually forcing people to stop you. You're forcing people to take your workers onto their player board and then eventually sell them into prison. Now this might seem like it's a bad thing, but it's really a good thing, because the sooner your workers get sold to prison, the sooner you can get them back on your board without paying. Obviously you can recapture your own workers, but that's going to cost you money and time. And if it gets to the point when too many players have captured your workers and you're running low, you can always go to the guardhouse and pay 2 tacks and 3 coins to get all of your workers back from others. Another basic concept is capturing workers, because there's this ecosystem of placing workers and capturing them, selling them, or maybe capturing back your own workers, because you never want to run out of workers, otherwise you're going to be wasting time and wasting turns. So when should you capture other people's workers? I'm just going to tell you straight out, if you go around just capturing other people's workers just to be mean and just to be haha, I caught your workers and you can't keep going there anymore, you're going to lose the game. I've played with people who have done that and they've lost the game. But when someone gets at least 3, maybe 4 is even better, workers on the same spot, it's a good time to capture them, because that's going to be getting you 4 coins in 2 turns. If you wanted to get 4 coins, you could also get them in 2 turns here. But obviously you're not slowing down the other person. So you've got to think about how it will benefit yourself, as well as slow down the other player. The one spot where it's a good idea to capture at 3 workers is the mines, because the next turn the person's going to get 2 gold. That's 2 points. If you capture their workers, they're going to have to place 3 more workers, waste 3 more turns to get 2 gold. So in that way you are wasting a lot of time for the other players, which is going to help you get ahead of them. Obviously this game is called Architects of the West Kingdom, so we're going to be building lots of buildings, and we're going to be building the cathedral, maybe, if you want. But when should you build buildings? Should you build them as soon as you have all the resources? I would say that's not a good idea. You only have 20 workers, which seems like a lot at the beginning of the game, but once you start slapping them down in the guild hall, you start to really notice that you don't have 20 workers anymore. If you've built, say, 5 buildings, or maybe you've gone to the top of the cathedral, which would be 5 workers, you start to run out, and you can't get as much of one resource as you could get in the past, because you've got maybe 2 in the tax stand, you've got 1 over here, 2 over here, and you're starting to go, where are all my workers? So it's definitely better to try and build towards the end of the game. But if all the other players are doing that, then there'll be a mad rush at the end, which is actually quite fun and quite tense. But you need to also watch the resources that the other players have, because according to how many resources they have, you can kind of figure out how many buildings they can build turn after turn. Obviously some buildings are going to help you earlier in the game, or maybe the cathedral might help you earlier in the game, so it might be a better idea to build that earlier. But as a general rule, if you can, try and build the buildings towards the end of the game. Another important concept is that silver, especially if you've got these metal coins, you just want to have a lot of it. But at the end of the day, it's not going to help you that much. Silver is only worth 1 point for every 10 silver at the end of the game. It's a very important resource at the beginning of the game to get your apprentices, to go to the black market, to capture other people's workers. But definitely towards the end of the game, unless you have a strategy that is using silver, you're probably not going to have that much need for it. So hoarding silver, don't do it if it's not going to benefit your in-game points. When should you sell workers of other players? Sometimes the best idea isn't to capture and then sell in the next turn. It's only really a good idea if you really need the money straight away. Because in this game, everything becomes more efficient the more workers you place in the same spot. So my second turn, going to the town centre, I can capture 2 groups. So then I end up having 13 workers that I captured in 2 turns. And then I can sell them in my third turn, making 13 coins instead of what would have been 5 if I had only used 2 turns. So everything that you do in the game, you should be thinking about how to maximize what you're getting for the amount of turns you're taking. In a game of architects, there are many strategies and paths to victory. You may say to me, well, not really, you just build buildings and maybe you get a few points from virtue, the cathedral's always building, there's some points for other things, but there's really just one way you build buildings. Well, that's sort of true. We are architects of the West Kingdom. But to build buildings, you need to have resources. You need to have your wood, your stone, your marble, your brick, and your gold. In the game, we're given many different ways to gather these resources. Obviously, it seems that there's just the simple resource spots. But in the apprentices, we get given many different ways that we can use to get the resources we need. Plus, we can use the black market as well, if you want to go down maybe more of an evil route. So now let's examine together some of the main strategies you can use to try and win this game. A small note, obviously every game is different. The apprentices that come out, the buildings that come into your hand are different. So you can't just use one of these strategies that I'm about to tell you holistically in every game. But you should examine the apprentices, the buildings that there are that you have, to see maybe which strategy or part of a strategy will be more efficient to help you win the game that you're playing. The most basic strategy I call the builder. You get resources and you build buildings. It's probably what most people think the game is about if they maybe have played it only one time. But even this simple strategy, there are ways to optimize it and make it better than maybe another person who's even trying to do the same simple thing. This is the simplest and most straightforward strategy, and it's also very viable. It's not that the other more complicated strategies are definitely going to win you the game. They maybe have more potential to get higher points, but this strategy is tried and true and it's pretty good. So as a builder, what should you do? Well, you should get 6 building cards into your hand. I mean, you start with 3, get some more, try and have 6 that you like, maybe a mix between a few big buildings and some smaller ones that you think you can build them all in the same game. And then you need to get those resources. But, as I said before, it's best to focus on one spot. So, if you do a bit of maths in your head, you can count out, how much brick do I need? And then you start going to get brick until you get all the brick for all your buildings. And then wood. How much wood do I need? And you continue like this. And as I said, people are going to capture your workers and you're going to get them back. And then you can go to the next spot and get all the stuff you need. Obviously, you're going to need some apprentices to build the bigger buildings that ask for 3 apprentices. Some of the smaller ones you don't need any. The best apprentice that you could get for this strategy would be the labourer, who has all three of the symbols, and just with him alone you can build any building. So go to each resource, get all of the resources, and then build all the buildings in a row. And you'll find that building 6 buildings in a row is going to scare everyone, because the game at that point is going to be ready to end, and other people are going to be trying to do their strategies, trying to get all their resources, and suddenly 6 buildings come out and the game is closer to finishing. Some other good apprentices for the builder can be ones that give you passive money. So the peddler, each time the black market resets, gives you 2 coins. Or the squires, if you don't have guys in prison, which you probably will, so it might not be so good, but the squire, if you don't have guys in prison, when the black market resets, gives you, well, there's different squires that give you different stuff. So those passive ones can keep getting you resources, and you're not having to worry about getting money to get your to capture back your workers or something like that. Which buildings should you build? Probably all the buildings are more or less okay. Obviously you need to be looking how they're going to be affecting your virtue, because you don't want to drop into the minus points. You want to look at how they combo together. One of my favourites is always the aqueduct, because that gives you a point for each building you build. So if you build 6, that's already 6 more points. That's like another building. So yeah, just really look at what they give you, how many points, what their bonuses, and when you're doing this building strategy, you can pretty much build whatever you want. Basic mistakes. Remember not to build too early, because you're going to need your workers to be placing them on those spots. But don't build too late either, because it feels really bad if the game is over and you could have built another building. So try and hit that sweet spot just when you get to build all your buildings and other people aren't going to get to finish all of theirs. What are some good ways to counter this strategy? Obviously, capturing workers when they build up to 3 or 4 on the same spot is really good, especially if you're using a different strategy that uses money a lot, because obviously capturing workers is going to give you money. It's not really worth doing it if it's just for the sake of capturing workers. Another strategy is to try and reset the black market when they have lots of workers in prison. As they're going to be building workers up on one spot, it means that when you capture their workers and you sell them into prison, there's going to be heaps in there. So they'll probably definitely be the person who will get the debt if the black market resets. And obviously a debt is -2 points at the end of the game. If they go to pay it off, they're going to have to earn money, which is going to slow them down. So that's one of the ways you can counter them. The second strategy I want to talk about is the debt engine. The debt engine, what is it? 3 of the apprentices are called debt collectors, and they give you resources for every debt that you pay off. This might seem kind of weak, but if you can manage to get at least 2 of these, maybe the wood and the stone debt collector, they can earn you a lot of resources. Plus, if you can combo that with the building that will give you a point for every debt paid off, and even the building that gives you a virtue for every 2 debts paid off, you're going to start earning a lot of points, a lot of resources, which will allow you to build other buildings. And even if you build that virtue building and you pay off a lot of debts, you're not going to be finishing at the bottom of the virtue, even though probably the whole game you've stayed there. Obviously, with the debt engine, you're going to need a lot of money. You're going to need ways to make money. Maybe a conspirator, which makes it easier to capture workers, or 1 or 2 silversmiths. So it's a good idea to have the debt collectors and the money-making apprentices. For the buildings, build the ones that give you stuff for paying off debts, and other than that, just build ones that give you a lot of points. The debt engine is not strong just from the paying of debts. That's more like making the most of a bad situation, or making a bad situation not bad anymore. But what the debt engine allows you to do is not care too much about getting debts. So what does that mean? It means you should be going to the black market whenever you can to get those free, not free, but cheap resources. Getting lots of resources in for a small fee. obviously you're going to be dropping down the virtue, you're going to be getting debts, you're going to be resetting the black market and getting debts. And then when you pay those debts off, you get bonuses. So go to the black market as much as you can. You, as a debt collector, you want debts, but you don't want too many. So don't just try and drop down to the bottom of virtue going to the tax stand. Only rob it if it's really worth it. But go to that black market as much as you can, because it'll be the combination of the resources from the black market and the resources from your debt collectors that are going to give you what you need to build all your buildings. Being evil in this game is potentially very powerful because you pay less tax, because you can go to the black market whenever you want. But just be careful with timing, because a debt engine is generally going to take a lot more time than maybe just a building strategy or even a cathedral strategy. So if the game is going to end, you might not have even really started building. You might have a heap of resources, but you don't have time to pay off all your debts and build. So timing is very important, especially considering that you're going to be at the bottom of virtue, which is -9 points. So if the game finishes there, you're going to be really in trouble. So timing is key. Look at how many resources the other players have. Look at how many buildings have been built. Look how long the game has to go, roughly. And just make sure you don't stay in the bottom when it finishes. How do you counter this strategy? What you can do is you can deny the debt collectors. You can buy them before someone who seems like they're wanting to do a debt strategy. Maybe they've bought their first debt collector. Don't let them get their second one. You buy it before they do. Just to deny them. That is going to shut them down. Obviously you're wasting money in some ways, but you are completely shutting down how efficient their strategy will be, because one debt collector is not very efficient. 2 is okay. 3 is really efficient. Another way you can slow down debt collectors is capturing their workers from the guardhouse, which maybe normally you wouldn't bother about capturing people from there, but they go to the guardhouse to pay off debts, and you don't want them to pay off their debts. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing to harm debt collectors is speed up the game. As I said, being evil is all about timing. Speeding up the game, you make it really hard for them to get the best out of their strategy. So one of the ways to do that is building the cathedral, because you put 5 workers into the guild hall, spending relatively little. And if enough people build the cathedral or build smaller buildings, you're going to speed up the game so much they're not going to have time to build all the buildings they wanted to build and to get themselves out of the bottom of virtue. Another way to counter it is buy squires. Squires allow you to get gold, marble and virtue each time that the black market resets and you don't have workers inside the prison. So if you buy squires, when someone's going evil and they're using the black market, you know that that black market's going to reset a lot of times in the game. And if they reset it and you keep making sure you don't have workers in prison, in the guardhouse, you're going to be getting a lot of gold, a lot of marble, and you're going to be top of virtue. So you're just going to be getting massive benefits from them being evil. Another strategy which I think is one of the best if you can get the right apprentices is the black market abuser. The person who is just going to the black market over and over again. But to make it really efficient, because otherwise you're going to get lots of debts and lose lots of virtue, there's a few apprentices that are really important. The magician is essential because he's going to make it so that you don't lose virtue when you go to the black market. The gatekeeper is going to make it so that you, when you reset the black market, you get to take 2 workers out of prison. So it means you're probably not going to be the one who's taking the debt. And the swindler gives you resources for each time you go to the black market. If you can get all of these apprentices, I think you should be winning the game. But obviously getting these exact 5 is going to be pretty difficult, because if anyone realizes what you're doing, they're not going to let you have all of them. Second thing, they're probably not going to all come out in the same game. But if they do, you need to take advantage of it. The black market is super efficient if you're not getting debts and you're not losing virtue. How to counter this strategy? Obviously, squires, as in the debt collecting strategy, you know people are going to be going to the black market a lot, so get them squires. Another thing you can do is deny them the apprentices that they need, either the swindler or the magician or the gatekeeper. If you deny some of those, it's not going to be as efficient. They're not going to get as much out of that strategy as they would like to. Another thing you can do is go to the 3-coin black market spot before they do, because that's going to be getting them the most resources. Another strategy is the merchant, where you use these merchant apprentices, which there are 5 of, 1 for each resource, to trade money for resources in the king's storehouse here. So this is pretty good because you can trade 1 coin for 2 rocks, 2 stone, and 1 coin for 2 wood, 1 coin for 3 clay, 2 coins for gold, and 3 coins for a marble. Using these can be an efficient way to get resources, especially with the stone and the wood and the clay. Obviously you need a lot of money, so you're going to need some way to get money as well. In my experience, this isn't necessarily going to win you the game by itself as that's your only strategy, but I think having a couple of merchants can really help you when you can get resources and you don't have to go to that spot. You can just use your money to get some extra resources. So maybe if you put it together with another strategy, that can be really good for getting marble, because you might prefer trading money for marble rather than resources. So I would couple this together with something else if I was you. Another apprentice that can help you is the overseer, which basically gives you 1+ worker at the king's storehouse. So the first time you go there, you get to do 2 actions. That really helps you because obviously if you're trading all the time, people are going to be capturing your workers, so that just makes it faster to restart after people have captured your workers. If you can get the jeweler, or maybe even double jeweler, that's really good, because for you, if you're going full trader strategy, silver for you means winning the game. So the more silver you can get, change it into resources, and then build those buildings, and you can hopefully win. Or you can use the conspirator, which makes it cheaper to capture, because obviously you can make money through capturing workers as well. To counter this strategy, if you capture them at the king's storehouse and at the silversmith, they're not going to be able to do much. Obviously, another strategy is building the cathedral. I think a lot of players, when they see this game, they think that they must go up the cathedral, but it's not really a good idea, especially not if you have it planned out as part of your strategy for the game. Obviously 20 points is a lot, but you have to spend 5 workers. Not just the resources. The resources, it's quite cheap, but you have to spend 5 workers. And if you end up having to race someone, you're probably going to spend those 5 workers very early on in the game, and then you're not going to have them later on. I've seen many people go up the cathedral straight away and then not have enough workers to get enough resources to build anything else. And they did not win the game, because 20 points was not enough to win them the game. If someone's trying to race you for top of the cathedral, you're going to have to decide whether it's worth it for you to try and beat them. If you think you can beat them to the top, do it, because they're probably going to, if they waste time trying to catch up to you, they're not going to win, because they're going to waste 4 workers only getting 12 points. If the other person is probably going to beat you to the top, I would just give up straight away and not even try to race them, because you're going to waste a lot of workers to get not that many points. So just be careful when you're going to the top of the cathedral. Make sure that you're definitely going to get to the top. The cathedral can be really good to counter debt engines because you're speeding up the game, but I would say it's not good enough to build just the cathedral. After the cathedral, you want to build 2 or 3 other buildings. So just make sure that you've planned out, you've got your resources, you're ready, you've got your buildings ready to build, and make sure you get to build the buildings plus the cathedral. Another thing is that the cathedral just gives you 20 points, but every one of these cards will give you at least 1 virtue. So that's at least 5 virtues. So try and use the cathedral to send you up the virtue track. Because if you can get to the top of virtue, it means that the cathedral for you is worth more than 20 points. It's worth 27 points. And that is quite a lot. Apprentices that can help you get up the cathedral are acolytes. especially this one, who gives you a free building card each time that you build the cathedral. Obviously, every time you build the cathedral, you have to discard one of the building cards in your hand. So this guy just makes it so that you can keep building without having to go and pick up more building cards. The other acolytes give you some resources which will help you afterwards when you want to build some other buildings. A trader or a merchant to help you get marble can be really good, because you don't want to go to the black market. Remember that the cathedral is worth more to you when it gets you to the top of virtue. If you're going to the black market to get your marble, you're not getting the most out of your cathedral. You're really just wasting that virtue that it's giving you. Try to get to the top of the cathedral and the top of virtue, because that's going to give you a better chance of winning the game. A stone cutter or a wood cutter can also help you get these resources quicker. How do you counter the cathedral strategy? Other than getting to the top before them, you can't do that much. But my experience is that the cathedral strategy doesn't win unless it's played well. So someone getting to the top of the cathedral is not a guaranteed win. I have seen it win not that many times. The last time I lost, the player who won went to the top of the cathedral. So it can work, but it's not good enough in itself. You need to get to the top of the cathedral, get to the top of virtue, and build 2 or 3 other buildings. And then you're going to have a good chance of winning the game. So that's strategy and tactics for Architects of the West Kingdom. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it is going to help you to beat all your friends. I'm Neozelandese. Thank you for watching this video. It's the first one I've ever done on board games, and I hope it was informative. Thanks. Ciao.